Thank you.
Okay. This is new. I've not actually used Zoom for presenting for events for a while, but anyway, hello everyone. Super happy to be here. And so the way I usually do my talks, I usually throw some questions out to get some feedback. Just trying to get a sense in the room. Are people okay with me throwing questions out that you could possibly, talk back to me about? Like a thumbs up is good, or you could type in the chat, or best thing is just turn on your video and talk face to face. Otherwise,
That's
it just becomes a lecture series, right? I think. Oh, cool, Rashmi. Thank you for your thumbs up there. Amit, thumbs up to you too. Lovely. Cool. So let me find that button.
right.
Cool. Okay, cool. So thanks for the introduction, Rupam. Um, Let me just jump to my introduction slide. There we go. So I've been working with Fractal Ink for the last 3, maybe 4 years, and I've been working in the general space of design and user research and user experience strategy for like 8 years. And again, I didn't start off in strategy. It's somewhere where I got to after like doing graphic design, web design, and just being curious about how to make things more easy to use, more fun to use. Along the way, I have been part of various communities. There is the Get Started in UX Design community, which I think is super cool. Very India focused designer community on Slack. Rupam's also part of it. And maybe some of you over here are also familiar with it. Then there is a designer hangout community, which is sort of the same thing, but on a global scale. And I think they've got like close to 20,000 people now.
Yeah.
And what I really enjoyed about it is that I could actually have direct one-on-one conversations with people like Jared Spool, Laura Klein, Eric Ries, all the people who write the books that we hear about, right? So do check those out. And the last one is UX Brunch, which co-founded with Rupam, and we started like 3 years ago. And yeah, it's currently sitting in hibernation, but we should be coming back soon. So I'm not going to spend much time talking about the right side of my slide. It's basically just a big bunch of words to, just connect with anybody who has information, like ideas about them. But it sort of represents the different domains in which I've worked in. It's in the realm of user experience design and research, but more lately, over the last 2 years, well, 1.5 year, I have been facilitating digital transformations in large companies. Most notably, I have Bank Misr in Egypt. There is NetBank in South Africa. And there are a couple of clients we can't disclose. But yeah, after spending about a year and a half doing digital transformations, I thought it would be nice to share some of my ideas about, okay, this is what I've seen, this is what works, and I would love if, it connects with any of you. And the the talk I'm doing today is going to be like very introductory level. You don't need any prior understanding of digital transformation or anything. Like I'll go to the basics here. And it is a very vast field, like entire industries or entire businesses are set up around innovation and transformation. So if you do want me to go deeper into anything, just let me know. I'll be happy to talk there. Yeah, so shall we begin? Cool.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Thank you. Cool. So I typically like talking about case studies, but I was not able to, pull something together that was, uh, good for this format. It's typically like a video and whatever, but I want to focus on two things here. So Netflix has always been talked about as a super innovative company. They've created new markets, et cetera, et cetera. But what is interesting is how Netflix has constantly looked at what are we going to do next. So Netflix is very aware of its legacy about how they displaced the DVD rental system, right? And they knew that in 5 years down the line, all these other companies are going to play catch up and they will be living in the world where there are so many other competing streaming services. So what do you do in that case? That's why Netflix started making its own productions. So Netflix of the older era used to be about finding the stuff you like on TV. Like you had Friends, you had, well, Big Bang Theory, all the movies. But increasingly, movie studios don't want to give the movies to Netflix because, hey, it's on our streaming service now, come to us. So, yeah, Netflix has done that. So now Netflix's next challenge is going to be fine. We are living in a world with so many streaming services. How do we differentiate ourselves and how do we, bring our offerings to the rest of the world and still make it relevant? Second thing, sorry, the second company I want to talk about is Disney. Show of hands here, like use any of the emojis or just raise your hand in the video. How many know what this image is of Disney over here? Okay, cool. So I see two hands here. So that is what Disney calls a magic band. Around 3, maybe 5 years ago, Disney decided that it needed to create a magical experience. So Disney's always been about the magic, right? It has this place in everyone's minds. And they thought in all our theme parks, we need to do something that is so out of the world that it's going to like take the industry by storm. They have literally transformed what it means to go on a amusement park adventure or amusement park outing or whatever. So they focus from the ground up. What do people do in amusement parks? Why do they go there? And what are the biggest challenges they face? And ideating on those, they came up with a whole lot of changes in their theme parks. The most notable one was this Magic Band. So I'll talk about the Magic Band for a bit. When somebody's going to Disney World, Florida, or a Disney park or something, you either go there for a full day or you plan your vacation around it where you're staying in a Disney resort for like 2 or 3 days with your family and going to different attractions and things. And what the final solution ended up being is you do the booking online, as most people do their bookings these days. And part of the booking process is selecting a design for this magic band. So it's upfront and center. And what this magic band does is your unique identifier throughout the journey. So once you've made the booking, maybe in a couple of weeks, you will have these personalized bands, one for every member traveling, right? And this band is going to be your everything. So the idea is that you go online, you activate it, and when you go to the Disney park, you don't have to carry an itinerary, you don't have any confirmation codes. You literally just wave your hand and you're let in. And the entire Disney park is rigged with so many sensors that it knows where you are. So when you enter the main entrance, the hotel staff is immediately informed that, oh, this guest for this room is coming. So they make sure things are in place over there. And accordingly, like things like your favorite attractions, or you have two kids, so they add all these moments of delight throughout the experience. And of course, I'm not really doing justice to it by waving around on this video over here, so I would encourage you to look up the Disney Magic Band case studies and videos out there. So the reason I talked about these two companies is because they had this big idea that, what we're doing is not enough. We need to do something different, but what is that something different, we don't know. So, at the heart of it, innovation recognizes that we need to do something different. And the fun of the journey is how. So, anybody want to throw some ideas out? What is innovation, or how would you define innovation? Let me open up the chat here in case someone's typing over there.
Maybe it is a way of doing something
Mhm.
similar but with different delivery of experience or improvised and efficient way of doing something.
Okay. So, let me play that back to you. It's a way of doing something different that is improvised and
Yeah,
more efficient. Did I miss something? I think I missed a fourth point. You said something.
and maybe cost saving or maybe more optimal way of doing things.
Okay, so cost saving, optimal efficiency. I get those. Okay. Anybody else want to try throwing your ideas out?
Making things more easier to the, for the users,
More
making it
easy
more
for the.
fun, attractive, something like that.
Okay. Thank you, Rashmi. Mm, cool. So let me go ahead with this. So those are all very valid parts of what innovation is. And in an attempt to be succinct, in a way that relates to companies as well. Innovation is a profitable implementation of ideas that meet business challenges. That's the way I like to sum it up. It's not my own quote, it's something that I've read and multiple people have used it. And I want to focus on three things here. One is the profitable bit, because ultimately businesses are in the business of doing business and making money out of it. That's why the profitability bit is upfront and center here. Innovation for innovation's sake helps no one. And I think that's been established by the number of Tinder for dogs kind of startups that have come up, right? So you want it to be profitable. Second thing is the word ideas. So this is a rather underrated word, and honestly, ideas can take different forms and in different contexts, they mean different things to people. But over here, the word idea over here is meant to just, introduce this possibility of the limitless. That's why I love, that's why I actually like the word that they've used, ideas, because instead of ideas you could have used like product features or solutions. No, it's not solutions or features, it's ideas that are the heart of innovation here. And lastly, it's something you do to meet business challenges. Your company has a problem, or your company might have a problem, right? Sometimes you don't even know what challenges there might be. So part of good innovation is to understand what we're solving for, and this goes back to design thinking frameworks that Chanakya talked about earlier as well. Any questions before we proceed? Cool. Thank you. So, why would we innovate? Why would any company innovate? Why spend all this time, effort, money, and you know, consume all these pizzas and coffee? Why do it? Number one reason for most companies is that it's basically about money. So customers may want to pay more for an innovative product or service. And on the flip side, maybe our company will be able to run more efficiently, drive down our costs so that we can deliver that value to our customers and users at a lower cost to us. And hence, it affects the bottom line. We have more savings. And hey, more money means more opportunity to do more cool new stuff. So it's like this nice feedback loop there. I can't minimize Zoom when I'm sharing Zoom windows. Okay, fine. Sorry, I tried to do something with stuff. Um, a, a big part of the innovation agenda for companies is to disrupt themselves before somebody else does it. Um, Amazon is good at doing this. So they, um, actually, I don't want to pick the word. You know what? I'll come back to an example of disruption later on. I'll just quickly go through the contents because I think I'm going slightly over my self allocated time. Um, Another key thing is to identify or create new markets for your products and services so that you can, sell your products and services there. And finally, the one that's closest to my heart is it just means more interesting work for you and your employees. Like if stuff is exciting, people are going to do their best work. So it also helps you make a better company. So, what are we innovating? As in, what are all the things that people innovate out in the real world? You'll be innovating on products, you'll be innovating on services, but beyond that, you could also be innovating on the processes. So, all the stuff at the back end, this falls in the optimization territory. Um, Innovation of the business model is coming up. Okay, wait, before I proceed to the right side, should I expand a bit on the left side? I've been doing this for a while, so I kind of take it as a given that, oh, we know innovative products, we know innovative services, but should I talk a bit more about it? Just getting a sense of the room. Hmm. Okay, let me just go ahead. So, innovation of business models, values, and market are things that are not spoken of in pop culture and media. So for a lot of companies, you don't need to come up with a new product or service. You just need to find a better way of monetizing it. That's where the business model comes in. So, business model innovation will look at your costs, your expenses, your revenue streams, and play around with different ways of restructuring these just to be able to get more value, well, more monetary value for the company out of it. Innovation of value is a very it's this nebulous thing where you're essentially presenting your products and services in a whole new way. A good example of this would be the difference between, I had one in my mind. Okay, so the difference between Uber and Lyft. Lyft is a ride sharing company in the US, for those who are not familiar. Both of them do the same thing. You can essentially use your app, call the cab, it picks you up and takes you somewhere, right? But the way they're differentiating themselves is in terms of value. Uber is very, very cutthroat with their prices, and they're like, this is the cheapest way to travel, and that's how they, get in the market share. But what Lyft has done is that they have a huge focus on safety and reliability. So for the markets that they operate in, they don't play around with, oh, it's going to be the cheapest. No, what they do is they guarantee these cars are safe, these cars are clean, these drivers are trained, and we have your back. So this is the innovation of value that they did above and over a basic press a button to call a cab. And the last thing is innovation of the market that you're operating in. So this deals with identifying what markets will work for you, for your products and services. Now, in doing all these types of innovation, or in tackling all these areas of innovation, there are a multitude of frameworks and workshops and activities that can be performed. I will not be going indeed. Well, I don't have any slides for those at all, but at the end of this lecture or this presentation, if you'd like me to touch upon how we do this, in the sense like what are the things that we do for clients, I'll be happy to talk about it. So just, yeah, ping me about it later. So I'm going to talk about how most companies out there approach their innovation. There are five main ways of doing it, and these have become established innovation models, you might say. First one is research and development, and the little arrow things I've done is basically talking about the intellectual property that comes out of innovation. What happens to it? So an R&D lab is set up inside a company, and the outputs of the R&D lab, all the innovative new discoveries, everything, right, they stay inside the company itself. That's why it's like from inside to inside. Next are incubators. Incubators are spaces where you come up with your ideas, you create this intellectual property, but then it is done with the idea that you want to set it out in the world. So the things coming out of an incubator are typically spun off as new products, services, or companies. So they may or may not have ties to the existing business, but the model is that you want to send things outside. Now, for all if intents and purposes, you could easily take the stuff from your R&D lab and put it out, and then it becomes an incubator. And it's just like a rose by any other name in that case. But the so this is basically when you're setting up a particular kind of setup, you typically end up doing that. That's what it's meant to indicate here. Next are corporate accelerators, or just accelerators rather. Don't always have to be corporate. Y Combinator is, I think, the most popular and well known. I think popular and well known mean the same thing. Sorry for the redundancy. Accelerators bring an idea from outside. There's usually a pitch process involved to prove the viability. And if the people running the accelerator like your idea, they give you a bit of money and time and say, hey, come here, we have resources for you. Develop this idea to fruition, and we will help you make sure it's successful. So ideas come from the outside. They are, developed inside the accelerator, and then they go back out in the real world. At which point, the company that set up the accelerator may or may not have some stake in that, idea that's been nurtured in the accelerator there. Venture capital investment is the idea that we don't want to set up our own infrastructure for innovation. Let us, quote unquote, buy it. So they will typically invest money in a promising startup or promising research, and they just reap the monetary benefits without having to, do their own hiring, training, infrastructure setup, etc., etc. So that's an approach that works for companies as well. And lastly, mergers and acquisitions. It's where you want to just purchase the innovation capability from a lab or a company or a studio that has a track record of doing it well. The idea is that, hey, I'm a big company with deep pockets and we want innovation to happen over here. You are a company that is doing so many awesome, amazing things, and I think we can make it worth your while if you join us. So that's like the high level conversation that happens with mergers and acquisitions. Beyond these five, I don't think there are like too many setups that deal with innovation. Like I certainly haven't found any. The most popular innovation setup right now are digital factories or startup labs or any sort of entity within the big company where you have these bunch of people working on their own, slightly connected to the parent company, but with way more independence than your typical product department. So those fall into your either R&D or incubators there. Any questions about these before I go to the next slide I have here? Cool. So how do we start? Um, the biggest learning I've had in the last 1.5 year, and this has been mirrored by so many other consultancies out there, that innovation has to be top down. It's nice when innovation happens from the grassroots and flows up, but the reality is that if something's not in the agenda, if the manager or the seniors are not incentivized to encourage innovation, they literally will not, right? Like, why would a manager spend time, effort, money on something that he's not going to get rewarded for by the company itself? So that's why we say that the innovation has to be top down. When the C suite, when the founders, when the directors are all on board about, yes, this is the vision for my company, this is the impact we want to deliver, they are able to make these institutional changes and authorize or enable the entire workforce to do the things necessary for innovation. And the innovation mindset is, it's literally that, it's a mindset. It's not a list of rules to follow. It's not a bunch of processes you implement. It is literally a different way of working. Second thing is that it should be impact driven. A lot of innovation fails in companies because it's not measured properly. um, it's very important at the start of your innovation efforts that you decide how you're going to measure your success, because traditional methods of measuring innovation of quarterly revenue and active user, etc., doesn't quite work. A typical payoff on innovation investment usually happens in like 3 to 5 years. So going in, you should be prepared to spend that much time on it. And the last thing is that you need to put people at the center. These are not just your users and your customers, but also your employees, your management who are going to drive all this change. These are also your vendors and partners that you work with to provide your products and services to your customers. So it's every single human involved in this, involved in making your company alive. Okay, I'm going slightly over time. Let me just do a quick sense check. So, uh, okay, I'll breeze through this. Innovation happens on two sides. One is inside the company with the enterprise, and the second is with the customer experience. When the company has been able to transform how they innovate in both sides of this equation, that is when true disruption is able to happen. The company is equipped to come up with new ideas that will possibly, put themselves out of business, but the fabric of the company, the culture is such that they're able to handle it and pivot effectively. So disruptive innovation is something that a lot of people want, and a lot of companies do need it, but it takes a bit of effort on both these two things before disruptive innovation can happen. So how do you know, how do you, like, what are the things you can do to make it successful? Everybody wants to be innovative, fine, you can have all your frameworks and activities and all that, but at the heart of it, you need to focus on four things. You need the right people. You need these entrepreneurial, risk taking, thinking out of the box people. You need people who are from the organization, who know the legacy systems, who know how, sorry about that, yeah, who know how things work. And at the flip side, you need fresh thoughts from outside. who can, just keep challenging the status quo and move the company in a different direction that would not have happened if you have the same internal thought process happening all the time. So diversity of people is key. Second is the culture. Talked about this a while ago, that it's not just about following processes, it's about a mindset. So the culture of innovation is about every single person understanding that we are here to do something different. We are doing things in a different way, and there is permission to, do things that maybe I would not have been able to in my old job. There is permission to try things out, learn from them, and keep improving. Technology is a big piece, in my opinion. The right technology is going to get out of the way of people and let them do innovation instead of using technology to make innovation happen. It's like a slight nuance there. But basically, you want your tools to be, uh, s- how do I put this? You don't want your tools to get in the way of good ideas. You don't want your tools to get in the way of moving the bar forward in your company. So technology is a big piece there. And the last bit is governance, where you want to check in on the progress. So the KPIs I mentioned earlier, the metrics you use to understand whether you're making progress or not, you look at those and you check in every couple of weeks or a month, and you make tactical decisions about, are we going in the right direction and what needs to change. Like, this might be about restructuring the way people talk to each other, or bringing in new kinds of technologies to use, or hiring new people, or trying out just a completely new way of ideating. So it could be anything, but governance is a key piece to make sure you're going along on the right path. But yeah, so those are my slides. They're available for download. You can check out the link, bit.ly innovation hyphen October hyphen 20. And I'm on Twitter, so you can always tweet to me, talk to me about this later. And yeah, I'd love to hear back from you guys about how this was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mihir. Thank you, Mihir, for doing this. It was
Mhm.
a very insightful presentation. Uh, so, eh, anybody having question, please go ahead. So, first one we have from Amit Jaina. His question is business model innovation more important than product innovation to succeed, or doing both together is